Coming up with content this time of year can be tough. It really can be. But when you cover the San Francisco 49ers, they make your job so damn easy. And the title of this show is Free Agency is about to get explosive for the 49ers. I don't think that is an overstatement. So Sunil and I are going to talk about it all right after this. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. It's your boy Jesse, and I got my guy, So Real, Sunil, right over here. What's up, Sunil? How you doing, man?
There is nothing in the news about the 49ers ever.
It's true.
It's the most dead team to follow. Honestly, though, Jesse, I don't know what it would be like to be part of any other fan base than the 49ers, because if there's this much, I wonder if there's other teams that have as much action that's going on like we do. But I can't believe like the Minnesota Vikings, our fan base is dealing with the stuff that we're dealing with on a constant week by week, year by year basis. And it's phenomenal.
No shot that that's actually happening. And there are teams that like catch lightning in a bottle. I'm looking at a couple teams right now that are going to have a like the Bears right now are about to go on a 2-month run where their content's going to be fire. You got the number 1 overall pick. Do you trade that? Do you trade Justin Fields? Right. But once that's done, they don't just produce constant content the way that the 49ers do at all.
Even like the Kansas City Chiefs that have a team that will constantly be in Super Bowl contention, have the best quarterback in the league and all that kind of stuff. I bet it's hard as a Kansas City fan to have like offseason, like after you win the Super Bowl, you have the parade. Now what?
I mean, I guess they got the Frank Clark thing to talk about. That's cool for a little bit.
And after 15 minutes, then like, what do you do?
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Yeah, Ryan. Hey, maybe that's the name of the show. 2 guys, 1 show. It's a little too close to something else, but I like it. I'm not ruling it out, Ryan. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying it's a little close to something else we're not going to talk about here. That being said, we are going to talk about, you guessed it, Lamar Jackson. And I just want to get your thoughts. I mean, I gave my thoughts over on Jack's channel, and I'll do it, of course, here as well. But my overall thoughts are kind of changing on the fly here. The more that I'm just kind of sitting here and basking in it, what are the possibilities? This whole Lamar Jackson situation. First of all, when you heard what the Ravens are doing, what was your initial thought?
That there is a conspiracy between owners in the league to make an example out of Lamar Jackson, that other than the Cleveland Browns owner, nobody's giving guaranteed contracts to anybody.
Yeah, and I think, it's crazy because
fully guaranteed, I should say.
Yeah, I did text a buddy. I said, hey, this seems like league collusion. And it seems like everybody kind of came to that consensus. But I don't know if it's collusion in the true sense of the word, that they're all picking up the phone and like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I think the league made their mind up, however, once Deshaun Watson signed.
Right.
They all are like, we want no part of a contract like that. And so they're already lockstep as far as what's going on.
And can I tell you why?
Yeah, go ahead.
The amount of teams that are coming out now, and it's being reported that are not in the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes. That is when I was like, wait, the Atlanta Falcons now are saying they're not in the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes. Are you kidding me? Like the New York Giants just signed Daniel
Jones.
Daniel Jones.
Danny Dimes, man.
Danny Dimes. Like the Jets are no like like all of these teams are telling me that you don't want a 26-year-old former MVP as a quarterback. Like we're just gonna be like, nah, we're not even gonna look into it. We're not even gonna like make a call. We're not even gonna reach out and see what those numbers look like. To me, that's collusion.
Yeah, it's a little sketch. Listen, Marco, we weren't going there. You did. We were not going there. Do you see what you started, Ryan? This, by the way, Ryan, if you ever wanted to know why you haven't been invited on Last Second Sports, this is why.
Wow. Wow. Low blow.
We have a running joke. We have a running joke though, because Ryan, he invites me on all the time. Super, I love Ryan, but he's like, man, you've just never invited me on the show. Like, what's up with that? And and my thing is like, it's off season. It is hard to come up with content. I don't want to just invite you on to invite you on. Like, I want to make sure it's going to be a banger of a show. And so like, I'm waiting for that moment. So until that moment happens, it's definitely going to be one of those things where, hey, we're going to keep it going. We're going to keep the joke going. There you go, Ryan.
Insert Jesse never really invites anybody to be on his show unless you're on the opposition, right?
Yeah, for sure. Here, let me make this easy for you, Harry. Let me make it really easy for you. Blocked. Now you don't have to worry about the circle jerk and the 49er content. So easy. And I don't block anybody. You're the first person. Maybe not the first. People have gotten disrespectful. I've blocked 2 or 3 that have been disrespectful. But you don't want any part of 49ers content. You think it's all boring. So there you go, man. Made it easy for you, bro. You don't have to worry about it. Not a big deal over here. All right. So Lamar Jackson, let's talk about it for a second from the 49ers standpoint.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people want Lamar Jackson, and I would love for the 49ers to find a way to go and get a guy like Lamar Jackson. I love the idea of it. And there is kind of a path to make it happen, but not their traditional route. Because what's happening right now is and by the way, I love this. I love what the Ravens have done. They've essentially said, hey, we're going to let the NFL be the counselor between us and Lamar. We can't come to a deal. We're arguing over this thing. We need a counselor. The NFL is our counselor. They're going to tell you what your value is, and we're either going to agree with the NFL or we're going to disagree. But if we disagree, we're going to get 2 first-round picks minimum to make this happen. So I love that they have made that approach. I think it's a smart move from the Ravens standpoint. But I will say that for the 49ers, it makes things tough because they can't go the traditional route. They can't just go and say, all right, we want to sign Lamar to a X deal. If you don't match, we'll give you 2 first-round picks. That's not the way this works. They don't have a first-round pick this year. So they either need to make that deal after the draft where they now have their 2 first-round picks, or they would have to work out another trade in order to get Lamar Jackson, which is a possibility. While he's on this franchise tag, they can technically trade him and do it in a different way. So if that is the case, first of all, do you think that Lamar Jackson, from a Kyle Shanahan perspective, is a player that he would even entertain going after? Let's start there.
1,000%.
Okay.
And I'll take it a step further. If there's a path to get Lamar Jackson, I would do it without the way I felt about CMC, what the 49ers should do to go get CMC, the 49ers should do to go get Lamar. And that includes if it means not re-signing Bosa.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think they'd be able to re-sign Bosa. But you think, I mean, you would go all in on him. I would go all in on him. You think Shanahan really would go all in on Lamar?
We have never lost. We haven't been able to win a Super Bowl because we don't have enough defensive linemen. We have never been into a situation where we've lost the Super Bowl or not been able to get to the Super Bowl because we don't have enough running backs. Not because we don't have enough wide receivers, cornerbacks, safeties. We've had one issue and one issue only. And the only issue has been having a quarterback that can compete against the quarterbacks that come in the playoffs. And if Kyle Shanahan is maybe realizing, hey, I can't develop this quarterback, I can't select the right quarterback. I know what he could do with somebody who's already been developed. I know what he's done to Matt Ryan. I know what he's done to Matt Schaub. I know what he's done to insert any quarterback that has been identified, selected by somebody else, and he's been able to get them the rest of the way. He's mentioned Lamar Jackson by name as somebody that he admires the traits of and would want those type of traits in his quarterback. Why not get the real deal? If there's a path to, and he's hearing the news about, man, can he win the big game, all this kind of stuff. He gets Lamar Jackson. I think that the 49ers instantly become the favorites, regardless of the roster around him.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I said, they can't go the traditional route. They can't just offer him a contract and send 2 first-round picks. It would have to be a legitimate trade. So how far are you willing to go for Lamar? By the way, I agree with the chat. I personally don't think Shanahan's going to go all in for Lamar or would really even consider it. That's just me. And maybe I've got Shanahan all wrong, but I have a feeling that they're really not going to seriously kick the tires on it for whatever reason. I don't see it happening.
Wait,
just the
Jesse,
philosophy of this team.
They were willing to go all in for Matthew Stafford. Why wouldn't they go all in for Lamar Jackson?
They weren't, though, because they didn't get Matthew Stafford. So they
didn't because of the deal outside, right? But as far as Kyle Shanahan and what he was wanting to do, right? What the timing of it didn't work out for Kyle Shanahan. But he's mentioned that he would have done whatever it took to get Matthew Stafford. The problem was Sean McVay had already gotten into Matthew Stafford's ear. They had already made the deal before Kyle Shanahan could get the deal done, right? But why would we know that he would have? Are you saying? Do you believe that Kyle Shanahan wasn't willing to give up the picks? That's why they didn't get Matthew Stafford. He went and used 3 first-round picks to get what he thinks is a solution in Trey Lance. Whether or not they believe that he's still the solution, why wouldn't we think that Kyle Shanahan would go all in on a quarterback that he believes in? If he's not, I don't think the question is he willing to go all in on a quarterback? Because I think we've already proven that through him wanting to do Matthew Stafford, through what he did to go up and get Trey Lance. They've given a lot to try to solve the quarterback position. The question is, does he believe Lamar Jackson is that answer? Because if that is the answer, I've already seen Kyle Shanahan go all in on trying to solve the quarterback situation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the belief that if you didn't get that guy, then you didn't go enough in. Like, especially when a guy got traded, like, then be earlier to the punch. It's not like we knew for a couple weeks that there was a possibility that Stafford was going to get traded. It's not like it came out one day and the next day he was gone. That's not how it worked. We knew. He knew. So, no, I don't think he went, quote unquote, all in. He may have felt like he went all in or made a good offer, but I don't think he went all in. This reminds me of like when John Lynch came out and said, well, we offered more than the Bears to get Khalil Mack. Did you? Did you really? Like, it's one thing to say that, but I'm curious to know if you actually did make that offer. They are like the kings of almost getting people. Oh man, we were all in on so and so, and it just at the very last second they just stole them from right under our nose. Like, I don't know if the 49ers are actually, now they were willing to trade up to number 3 to go get a guy, which ended up being Trey Lance, and I feel like that was an all-in move. But even then, they haven't gone all in on Trey Lance since then. I know we partially disagree on this, but that's my opinion. They haven't gone all in once they got Trey Lance to figure out if he was the guy or make him the guy. So,
but that's a different question.
I don't know. I personally don't think they're willing to.
We're talking that's a different question. They pulled the trigger. The question is, would they pull the trigger and give up assets and do whatever they need to do to get somebody? I believe that they tried to do that with Matt Stafford. I don't think it was a situation about they didn't give up enough. I think that deal was already done before they even got to the table, kind of thing. I think that they were going to go all in on Deshaun Watson. I think you and I both agree that the picks and all that kind of stuff were earmarked to go all in and get Deshaun Watson. Obviously, Deshaun Watson's off the field situations led to them not being able to pull the trigger there. They ended up pulling the trigger to go up in the draft. They tried to make the call to Aaron Rodgers, right? They were told right from the jump, if you're believing what Lynch is saying, and you're saying, hey, I don't always believe what Lynch says, that's fine. But they called to see if, hey, the same package could get Aaron Rodgers. It couldn't get Aaron Rodgers. They were like, no way, we're trading him to you. I don't see where anybody could look at what John Lynch and Shanahan said and say, hey, they're not willing to go all in when it comes to the quarterback position, at least pulling the trigger to get the guy that they want. Now, how they manage that player, obviously that's where you're talking about, hey, are they going all in as far as playing time, all that kind of stuff. But going after the guy that they want and getting him, I think that we've seen that they would do it.
Yeah, and I hope that I'm wrong. And if Lamar, I guess my question is, okay, so let's assume that's the case. If they don't go all in for Lamar, then that means that Lamar isn't that guy. And then now my question becomes, who the hell is then? Mm-hmm. Because if we assume that Watson was, then you got to assume that Lamar is. And if he's not, who is your guy? Who is your ideal guy? Because now I'm really confused. You got Trey Lance. You played him like he was Lamar, and he's not. And now you have a chance to actually get Lamar. And if you don't go all in, now I'm just thoroughly mind-effed as far as what is Shanahan's ideal guy. I don't know the answer to that question. So based off of what I'm hearing and the way that he played Trey Lance, the way that we both believe that they were positioning themselves initially to go get Watson before everything blew up in their face with that situation, then Lamar 100% fits that bill. They better go all in for him. They have to. Yeah. And it's going to take a lot. I mean, it's going to take probably Trey Lance. Not probably. It's going to take Trey Lance. It's going to take at least one first-round pick and another elite player. Bare minimum. Like, that's probably the starting conversation. Hey, we want we'll just say Debo, Trey Lance, and a first-round pick. We're starting there. That's the start of the conversation. Okay, so let's say that is the start of the conversation, and you are John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. What do you say when you hear that and you pick up the phone?
I say done. Send the paperwork.
Okay.
But that's what I'd say, because I'm with you as far as, are they bought into Trey Lance? The only reason why they don't do it, Jesse, is if they believe that Trey Lance can turn into that guy, right? Obviously, if you have a guy that you believe can turn into that guy, you don't make that move. But if you're not bought in, or do you think there's a question mark as far as what Trey can turn into? Yeah. If it takes Debo, Trey, and a first-round pick, to me, the 49ers get a steal in that deal. We already think
like I said, I think that's the starting point.
If CMC and Debo can be interchangeable as far as their impact on the offense, that solves your Ayuk situation, right? Because you already know Ayuk is an up-and-comer. That makes that decision for you. And obviously, if you have Lamar Jackson, you're not playing Trey Lance. So to me, and they usually don't. They're not very good at picking first-round picks. So, to me, that's a steal. You're not getting anybody better than Lamar Jackson with that 2024 first-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the starting point, I'm doing it in a heartbeat as well. But maybe it's different. What if we change the player? What if it's Lamar Jackson for first-round pick, Trey Lance, and Fred Warner? What do you say to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's nobody off limits, because at the end of the day, we've seen Fred Warner is the best linebacker in the game. And you're not going to get a player that plays as well as Fred Warner probably in the next however many years for the 49ers. However, Fred Warner losing the amount of upgrade Lamar Jackson will be to getting the 49ers closer to the Super Bowl will far make up the loss of Fred Warner, if that makes sense.
What if it's Nick Bosa and Trey Lance?
I'm
I
doing
just want
it.
to see what your breaking point is.
There is none. I'm telling
Okay,
you,
all right.
any star player on the 49ers can go to get Lamar Jackson because the impact that quarterback play will have in getting the 49ers closer to a Super Bowl will make up whatever it is that said player is going to do. And if you think I'm wrong, what did Bosa necessarily do in the playoffs that we would lose? I'm trying to figure out how to say this. What did Bosa do to get us closer to a Super Bowl in the playoffs that what you would say would make up for the impact of Lamar Jackson as quarterback?
Oh, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I would do the deal. I'm curious to see what the chat's saying right now, and I'll go to it now because now that I've kissed Bosa goodbye, not enough. Trade Chet and John.
I mean, there's certain people that are going to say Lamar Jackson isn't the real deal. I mean, that if you have that belief that Lamar Jackson can't throw, Lamar Jackson isn't a good enough quarterback to be in that realm. Okay, that's your opinion. I don't think Lamar Jackson has ever had the offensive weapons of most of the great quarterbacks in the league type of thing. Like, I don't think his wide receiver core has ever been close to what other great quarterbacks have had. And he's still been able to put up ridiculous numbers consistently. So to me, I think Lamar Jackson, if you could get Lamar Jackson, and like I said, this is a big if because the 49ers obviously would have to give a great deal that the Ravens are saying we wouldn't match. We won't do the same deal for Lamar Jackson, which I don't know if there is a deal that's out there like that. But if you can get Lamar Jackson, he changes everything. And I don't think there's two players on this team that you wouldn't trade to get Lamar Jackson.
Fish and Chip says QB1 is Kyle. QB2 is Trey Lance. QB3 is Brock Purdy. There's no room for Lamar or anyone. Fair enough. Fair enough. And I want to answer this question because you're not the only one that said this great one. So I'm not picking on you when I say this. That is actually not the case, though. He says, I don't know why you guys are talking about trading for Lamar when we don't have to trade for him. We can offer him a massive deal and hope the Ravens don't match. That is partially true, but it has to be done after the draft. So right now, the 49ers don't have a first-round pick this year. So they can't actually make that offer until after the draft happens and they have a first-round pick again. It has to be a first-round pick in the next upcoming draft in order to make that deal for Lamar. So right now, they can't actually just offer and hope that the Ravens don't match. They would have to do something special outside of that versus now, if the draft comes and goes and Lamar is still a Raven, then they certainly could go out and just offer and do whatever it takes. That becomes a possibility. But at this very moment, they cannot do that because they don't have a first-round pick in this upcoming draft, unfortunately, for them. So, Kevin, forget Lamar, get Clark, and have QB protection. We're going to talk about Clark. We're going to talk about a lot of rumored free agents. Okay. I know that I'm sure that you guys have heard the Lamar talk a ton. There's no way that we could have done the show without talking about it because it is news that happened today. And this is the first time that I've done a show since then. So we definitely had to talk about it. We disagree a little bit. I think we both agree that we would go all in on Lamar. We think Lamar is that type of player and that type of quarterback. The question is does Shanahan? And if Shanahan does, Sunil believes that Shanahan may go all in for him because he's shown to do that in the past. I disagree a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see how this thing plays out. I don't think it's a complete impossibility the way that I thought initially when the news broke. And I think a lot of you are still there. You think there's no way possible. I think there is a path to get Lamar. I really do. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take some interesting finagling of the cap. But there is absolutely a possibility to go get Lamar Jackson. Definitely.
You want to know what the biggest hiccup is going to be probably?
What's that?
Is would Harbaugh do that for Jed York? I don't know. There's obviously Harbaugh's brother didn't leave on good terms with York.
Good point. Very good point.
So are they willing to do business together? I don't know if it ends up ultimately being Harbaugh's decision, but if he has any say, I don't think that he helps the 49ers out in that case.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting spin and not one that I thought about, but I think it's realistic. I mean, relationships really do make up this league and how people do things. I think Harbaugh is smart enough to where if that was truly the best deal on the table, I think he would take it. But maybe it does take a little bit more to get him to say yes because of something like that. So that's totally fair. All right, let's talk about a quarterback that actually signed within our division. And this has implications on the 49ers because this is a player that we didn't know for sure the path that Seattle was going to take. I think we all assumed that they would sign Geno. The question is, and still can be, are they going to go after another quarterback in this draft? I don't know. We'll figure that out. But they gave Geno an awful lot of money, a lot of money. And I'll give you my personal thoughts. First of all, you've got teams like the Giants paying Danny Dimes. You've got the Saints paying for Derek Carr's services. Now you have Geno Smith signing with the Seattle Seahawks. I feel like these teams are all going about winning the wrong way. I think you either get an elite quarterback and you pay him, or if you're going to have mediocre quarterback play and try to win, you got to do it when that quarterback is on a very inexpensive deal. These teams that are paying mediocre-ish quarterbacks big time money, I think they're stuck in no man's land. That's just me personally. So when Geno signed, I was pretty excited about it because that's going to hurt their chances over the next few years to actually compete, I believe, with the 49ers. Too much money wrapped up in a quarterback that when he's at his best, we're talking a top 12 guy, maybe top 15 guy. I'm not doing it. That's not the way I'm running my franchise. So I'm happy that Seattle, in my opinion, stepped on that grenade and made that mistake. What were your thoughts when Geno signed?
Initially I felt great for the guy. I think Geno's a good guy. It's great to see the redemption story. Obviously a very high pick for the Jets, got kicked around the league and ultimately, going out there. And I think his deal was $35 million a year. I think something around that number. Is it going to hurt Seattle long term? I don't know, Jesse. And the reason for that is I don't know how much Seattle builds through free agency. I think they're a team that builds through the draft. And I don't recall the last huge free agent signing that they made, even when they had, guys on rookie contracts, whether it be Russell Wilson or whatever. So I don't know necessarily if that is necessarily going to mean they're not going to be competitive. I think Geno is a decent quarterback. Obviously, he's not elite, but I don't think he's middle of the pack either. I think he's probably can be anywhere from like 8 to 12, I guess, depending on how well he's throwing the deep ball. I think they're the only competition this year in the NFC West. I think is going to be between the 49ers and the Seahawks. And honestly, I would have. Yeah, I think I agree with you in the sense that this is, I think, their ceiling, right? I don't know. We don't know if they're going to get that much better than where they are right now, other than, they're young guys and they're rookies and stuff. Maybe that defense gets back to being elite when they were winning, when they were winning Super Bowl, when they were winning the Super Bowl and getting to Super Bowls. But I think that their offense is going to be decent for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it last week that they're a lot closer than maybe most people think. I mean, if they hit on their picks this year and those guys make immediate impacts, I think if you ultimately want to win a Super Bowl, I'm so big that the quarterback position is it. Like you likely need elite quarterback play. I think the NFL has told us that since it started. You've got 57 Super Bowls, 44 have been won by Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks. Like that's how you win in the league. Yeah, there are the one-offs here or there, but for the most part, that's how you win in the league. So if that's the case, Geno definitely is not that guy. And unfortunately for them, I don't think that he's the guy that's going to put them over the top over the next few years. So we'll see. Like I said, they may draft one of these guys. maybe they do invest in a Richardson and then sit him for 2 years or whatever. I don't know. We'll see. That would be a little scary if they do develop a guy like that. That would worry me a little bit. But for me, I'm just not worried about Geno Smith. When push comes to shove, that's a guy that I think the 49ers can beat almost every time when it matters most.
And do you know the details of the deal? Like, when could they get out of it? How much is
I don't know the full details. I just know that it's annually breaks down to $35 million. But of course, that fluctuates, right? I mean, that doesn't mean it's 35 every year. It's just the average is 35 million. I don't know if the actual full details have come out. Maybe they have. All I know is Geno is likely their starting quarterback for the next 3 seasons. I like that for the 49ers. Somebody did bring this up. I mean, which is a fair point. They not through free agency, but they did trade for Jamal Adams. They gave up multiple first-round picks to go do so. So
yeah, I mean, they'll trade. Like I said, they're always using their draft picks to get better. I don't think they've ever used money, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Jimmy. People are talking about Jimmy. He's going to get paid. Like, he's going to get paid something. He's loving watching all these deals happen because he probably feels like he's right in line with those guys, which I would disagree. I would pay every single one of those guys before I pay Jimmy, but he probably feels he's just as good as those guys, and his value should be in that range. So he's probably thinking he's going to walk away with $30 million, which he might. Some of these teams might get real desperate here. I'm curious to see how this thing plays out.
There's new teams coming in. I mean, you're hearing Houston might be interested now. Like,
yeah,
the more teams that are interested, all it's doing is raising his price tag, right? Because competition is going to lead to that. So he's probably the last, bona fide starter that's left on free agency, right? I think that isn't signed. So
I'm going to say
that at least people think, has led a team to the Super Bowl, right? There's not that many out there.
Right.
So he's there. So if the Raiders are looking for it, the Jets, Houston, Tampa, who knows? There's a lot of teams that are needing a quarterback, and he at least looks the part if you just look at him on paper.
I so badly want to see him go to the Raiders because that's such a Raider move. How do you move on from I can't even say it without laughing. How do you move on from Carr just to sign Jimmy? Talk about a lateral move at best, which I think Carr's better than Jimmy, but at best, we're talking a lateral move. That is wild to me. And even if we're talking lateral from a talent standpoint, one guy stays healthy every year, the other guy does not. Right. Such a Raider move. I hope it happens.
What's funny is, they were all, Derek Carr, $40 million a year or whatever. They're going to end up paying 30 to 35 million. So they save $5 million for literally lesser, I think, of a quarterback. It's really funny if the Raiders end up doing that, but a lot of signs are pointing to that's probably going to be what they do.
Well, and they actually owe Carr $5 million. So they would actually pay the same because they owe him. That's their cap hit for Carr for cutting him. So there's $5 million right there. If he comes anything close to 30, then I mean, it's basically an even swap because they were going to pay Carr 34 or whatever it was. So I don't know. That is wild to me. That is absolutely wild if that happens. So please, Raiders, make my day. I would love nothing more than to make a video about you on the second channel because the Raiders are gonna Raider. That is a horrible decision. Please do it. Please do it so we can all laugh at you. All right, let's talk about a player on San Francisco that has basically made it known that he is gone. And, listen, this isn't a quarterback or a big-time every down player by any means, but we do know that the kicker position is very important around this league. And when you have weird things going on at kicker, a la the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs, it can be very unsettling. And it happened to the 49ers a couple years ago when they played Seattle. That was a horrible situation to go through. Even the year later when we played against Arizona and Trey Lance's first start and Gould wasn't playing, they were afraid to kick field goals in that game as well. So when you don't have a kicker that you can rely on, it can be a stressful situation. So if Gould is in fact gone, How does that make you feel?
I mean, Gold has been amazing in the playoffs, but I do think there's flaws in his game as he's getting older that you got to take a shot to get somebody in here that could possibly do. And the two that stand out the most, one is his range isn't that deep, right? So he's pretty good at 45 yards and below and shorter, but you're not kicking a 50-yarder, a 55-yarder. You're not getting that kind of leg from him at this point. And that also shows up in his kickoffs, which is the second thing, right? He, I think, has one of the lower touchback rates when it comes to kickoffs. And that could affect, obviously, special teams is something that could definitely affect the game and field position and all that kind of stuff. So I think that those two things you play a role in whether or not you believe that however much it would be to sign him. I think it'd be like around $5 million. Is that worth the $5 million, or would you rather go in the draft and get a guy like Jake Moody, who I know a lot of people are high on, or people are saying Eddie Pinheiro, or another kicker that's out there that you could get for $2 million or cheaper maybe. You save $3 million for maybe 80% of what Gold could do, and maybe even better at some of the things that Gold couldn't do. I think it's about time to kind of make that move. But, the one thing I'm going to miss is that gumption that Robbie Gould has as far as like being able to warm up in front of the other opposing teams. Like that's going to be the part that's going to miss out. And you know what, Jesse, like there's a common trend. Like some of the things that the 49ers have lost this offseason are more like the fun, right? So we lost Boombox Guy. We lost Robbie Gould, right? He's going to be, that you get to see. And, if you're at the game and you get to watch him do it, is amazing, right? Just kicking it when the cheerleaders are running on or when there's players out there. It's really great to see. But I think that it's time to go younger and cheaper at that position.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they got to figure out something. And I think Gold is probably worth a little more than what they're willing to pay, which is fine. He is aging, and the kickoffs do matter. I mean, this is a situation that we've seen over the last couple of years slowly start to decline. And I definitely want a kicker that can routinely put it in the back of the end zone and stop these returns from even happening or taking place, especially when you've got a good returner on the other side. So for me, I agree with that. He has been money. I mean, you get him in a playoff situation or a game-winning situation under 50. I mean, it's good as Gold for a reason. He has been that. So I'm curious to see what they do. I am curious to see if they sign a free agent. There are some good kickers out there. I mean, even like guys like Matt Prater, I believe, are free agents. Maybe they go draft, they go Moody, but to ensure that you get a guy like that, you might have to draft him around early. So are they willing to do that? I don't know. We'll see. But it's definitely it's one of those things that, again, when you look at the way a team is built, you're not necessarily like, oh, we need a kicker. But if you don't have one, man, it can be a mess. So hopefully,
Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, they have to resolve it. It's one of those things that they have to resolve because it will lose you games, unfortunately, if you don't get it right. So hopefully they are able to resolve it in a good fashion. Niner Boss says, so a team is going to sign Jimmy to play half a season. I'm not buying it. Yeah, and that's the other thing is, what is his actual value? Is his value to these teams what some of these other quarterbacks have gotten? I don't know. But he's definitely liking the signings. I mean, it is driving his worth up, regardless of what that worth is. It is definitely driving it up in some sort of fashion. Jason says, I'm becoming a new member of the YouTube channel. I appreciate you, Jason, for supporting the channel. Definitely. All right, let's talk about some of these other free agents, because there's a lot of names that are all of a sudden rumored with the San Francisco 49ers, and I just want to gauge your interest on them. Okay? Let me pull this up here. All right,
so should we do scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, let's do scale of 1 to 10 interest. So 10 being the most interested, 1, you're either not interested at all or you don't think it's realistic. That's fine too. All right. So first one that came out was Baker Mayfield. What are your thoughts?
4. I just, I mean, I think Baker is a guy who rubs people the wrong way.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think he did really well with the Rams, but the Rams was his third team last season, right? He started with Cleveland, got traded to Carolina, and then they cut him and went to the like. Do we really want that type of quarterback that still thinks that he's a bona fide starter in the league? Like, I don't know. To me, my issue would be more: can he play the role that we need that type of player to be? And I have question marks there.
Yeah, I've never been a Baker Mayfield guy at all. And Baker Mayfield on my old podcasts, it was never a YouTube thing, but there's audio out there that I posted where I said two things. One, Josh Allen was clearly the best quarterback in that draft. Nailed that one. This one, not so much, but I felt like I was really close to getting this one right. I said that Baker Mayfield would be out of the league after 5 years. I really didn't believe in Baker Mayfield. He's not going to be out of the league, but man, he was trending that way before he got traded to the Rams and kind of had a little revival, because I feel like the way that you do, I think he's too much of a diva and a sideshow to be a backup quarterback unless he's severely matured over the last 12 months or so. I just don't think that's a guy that I want on my team. And I've just never believed in Baker Mayfield as a player. Never have. So I don't want him on the team. Now, I would have taken him as a backup last year when he was on the waiver wire over Josh Johnson. Yes. If he's my third string guy and Purdy's healthy enough to be the backup or the starter and Trey Lance is the backup, vice versa, maybe as my third string guy, I'd kick the tires, but I don't want him to be my backup. And I certainly don't want him to be my starter. So no on Baker Mayfield. I'm at like a 2. Jacoby Brissett. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I'm a 8 at Jacoby Brissett. I think he'd be perfect. I think he's exactly the type of quarterback that the 49ers should want here. I think he's knows how to play his role. He's been a backup, played in systems like New England, which is very disciplined, but also, played in other systems, whether it be Indy, obviously Cleveland last, been a starter, been a backup. Kind of what you get from him. I just don't know if it's realistic. I think that he could go. I think he's well sought out in the market. I would put him in, one of the top 3 kind of backup type people that are out there. And I think he would just find a better situation where he could actually get some playing time, where maybe he looks at the 49ers and that might not be as appealing, because if Brock Purdy does come back anytime this season, he will most likely would get demoted to, not playing. So I don't know if that be realistic, but I would be interested if it is.
So fair to say you're at a 10 on the yes meter, but a 1 probably on realistic.
Right.
Yeah. I'm actually in agreement with you. I love Jacoby Brissett. I love everything he stands for. I think he'd be the perfect backup quarterback. I would love to have him. But if Purdy is in fact only out 6 months, I think not very likely. Mike says Baker would be tackling fuel for Bosa. Ooh-wee. Yeah. Bosa doesn't like Baker, so those would be some fun practices, to say the least. No doubt about it. Okay. We've got 2 more quarterbacks here. Andy Dalton. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I'm not as high as some other people on Andy Dalton. I'd probably be like a 7. Okay. I think that the system changes quite a bit if Andy Dalton is the quarterback there, and I would much rather have a quarterback that has a little more mobility, because both Trey and Purdy both have mobility. So I want to find a backup that kind of the system doesn't change too much, or you could get the same out of him. You could get the same type of play out of him if he ends up having to play. And I don't think Andy Dalton fits that mold. So I'm probably more at like a 7. I don't think I'd be upset if he was there, but he wouldn't be my first choice.
Yeah, I think I'm actually a little higher, and not because like I'm just like this big Andy Dalton guy, but I will say that he actually fits the bill as a possible willing to be the third stringer. So if Brock Purdy, let's say, is out for the year, then Andy Dalton's not high on my list. But assuming that Brock Purdy's able to come back, then Andy Dalton's very high on my list, because if he's your backup for like 4 weeks, let's say, and then he's your third string guy, I think it might be realistic. And I would love to have somebody like Andy Dalton as my third string quarterback. You can do a lot worse than Andy Dalton, who started a lot of games in this league as a third stringer. And I think there is a possibility that it might be a realistic situation. So I'm a little
What
bit
makes you
higher for
think
that
that?
reason.
What
What's
makes you
that?
think? What makes you think that he would be okay with the third string role?
I mean, I think he would prefer to be a backup, but I think realistically, like, he might be a guy that doesn't get a lot of backup looks this year. Like, that's a possibility. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks trading spaces this offseason. And then it's a heavy class for not just like the top end guys, but it's heavy throughout the draft. There's a lot of backups you can get for dirt cheap through the draft potentially. So I mean, I'm not saying he won't earn a backup spot somewhere. I don't think he's like out of the league by any means, but I think there's a possibility that he could actually, out of the 3 guys we've mentioned so far, he's closer to being a third string guy than Brissett or Mayfield. That's just me. That's my opinion. You agree, disagree?
I think Baker Mayfield is more likely to be a third string. I just don't think he's the right personality to be a third string. I think Andy Dalton, teams are looking at him and they feel like he could still win with him being the backup, because he's proven it, right? He's done it the last 2 years. So I don't necessarily see a drop in his play as far as for a backup. And a starter, obviously not, but backup just to come in 2-3 games. I think he's probably up there as far as what teams would look at as a guy that could hold the fort down if their starter is down for a couple games. So I think he believes that too. So I don't know if he would go to a situation where there's a possibility he doesn't even get the opportunity to suit up.
No, Marco, you're amazing. Even though you made that comment earlier, I still love you. Go subscribe to Marco's channel, by the way. And while you're here, go to the description and subscribe to Sunil's channel. Gosh damn it. It's right there. It's free. It's just one click. You hit subscribe. Not a big deal. Just do it. Just go do it. All right. I don't know if I can say like just do it. I don't. Nike might sue me. I don't know. Too late, I guess. All right. What about Matt Ryan if he gets cut? How do you feel about that one?
2. I mean, I think you get 0 out of his arm. He would be completely just. I think you get Matt Ryan. You have to. So here's what I feel about Matt Ryan. You get, if Brock Purdy is out for the season, right? You get Matt Ryan, and you still get somebody else to be the second string. Like, only if Matt Ryan goes straight to the clipboard and hat and not suited up do I bring Matt Ryan onto the roster. If there's any chance Matt Ryan plays football for the 49ers, I'm out.
Hold on. You got to show me proof of this. Where's this at? Where are you seeing this one at? I'm not saying it's not true. It's not like I'm on social media right now or have like websites pulled up, but quote your sources, Jose. Quote your sources. Otherwise, you're just getting people excited for no reason. All right. I agree. Matt, no thank you to Matt Ryan. He is shot. Like shots. No way on Matt Ryan. I'm good on that. I watched him play football last year. Not very impressed. And I don't think he's much of a Shanahan guy is maybe you would think he would be for winning an MVP under Shanahan. I don't think they really saw eye to eye for the couple years he was there. So I'm saying no to Matt Ryan. Okay, let's get into some other positions and some big names here. Jesse Bates. Where are you on Jesse Bates coming in as a safety?
On a scale of 1 to 10, probably like a 15. I think that Jesse Bates and Hufanga could be the safety duo for, the next 5 years for the 49ers if they could pull that off. I think he'd be perfect for what the 49ers need. And, if they could get it done, get it done. I think that he's perfect, and I think he's great. Now, is it realistic? I don't know. I think that we haven't seen the 49ers pay out top dollar to a safety. So I don't know. They're definitely not going to be able to lowball Jesse Bates to get him over here. They're going to have to pay top dollar to get him there. And I don't know if Parag and the brass are willing to do that.
Vlad says Lamar agreed to a 4-year, $15 million deal. Source whiskey. But is whiskey a blue check mark? And did they pay for Twitter Blue, or are they actually a blue check mark? That is the question, Vlad. That is the question. And you're right. He's not the real Jesse, but we'll take it. I've got to ask about this one. He wasn't on our list. Let me answer the Jesse Bates one. Last offseason, I would have been at a 15 as well. I love the Jesse Bates signing. This offseason, I'm going to say like a 7. And the only reason I say that is I love Jesse Bates, the player. I would love to get the player. I just don't know if I'm willing to pay 16, 17 million a year to get that player, or possibly even more. When there are other safeties that are maybe like a level below Jesse, that are also young and would come at a fraction of the cost. So just the way that I would build the team, I don't think I'm dumping that kind of money in the safety spot. But last year I would have been all about it. Now that we've seen Hufanga pan out, though, they do need a running mate for him, hopefully long term. I think there are guys like Nasir Adderley out there that I like a lot, and some other guys as well. But Jesse
and
Bates,
the draft is deep too.
It is. So Jesse Bates for me is lower on that schedule, or on that tier, than what he would have been last year at this time for sure. Niner Matt wants to know about Jameis Winston, who was not on the list, but we will entertain you, Matt, for supporting the show. Where are you at on Jameis Winston scale of 1 to 10?
A 0. And this is why we have the issue with our quarterbacks is not necessarily that we don't think they could play. It's that we don't think that they could stay healthy. So I don't think the solution is bringing in a guy that didn't stay healthy all last season or couldn't stay healthy enough to win a starting job. I just don't think that we could bring in another oft-injured guy like Jameis Winston. So no shot that I would bring Jameis Winston in.
Yeah, Lake City Fresh, you're right. I mean, there was that picture on Instagram when they were at the Pro Bowl, I believe, where he was with like 4 or 5 49ers and they were out to dinner or lunch or what have you. So, yeah, Jesse Bates, man, he's definitely, I think, a realistic possibility as far as at least fitting in with the squad. And I heard, shout out to Marco. I'll just give Marco credit. Marco told me months ago that the 49ers were going to be interested in Bates when he became a free agent at the end of the year. And now blue check marks are corroborating that story. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's real interest there. We'll see. We'll see what he's actually offered and paid and all those types of things.
I wish we could really take what players say as far as cues to what the 49ers are going to do.
Yeah.
Because, like, Bosa says Mosley's coming back. The picture says there, like, Bates is part of the crew. Like, if this is, like, real life and we could be like, yo, Bosa said it. Debo's in a picture with him. Like, yo, our offseason's about to be lit. But I don't know how much they actually have a say in who the 49ers are bringing in through free agency.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Thank you, Kless, for becoming a member. I appreciate you. All right, next guy on the list. Now we're going to get into some edge rushers here. Frank Clark just got cut by the Kansas City Chiefs. 29 years old, going to be 30. How do you feel about Frank Clark? He's been a thorn in our side, I'll say that.
Depends. So I would say it depends on the contract, because
right.
this seems like the deal that this seems a little too much like D Ford, in the sense that it's a deal that he's going to be good for like a year or two. But the 49ers are going to go long term, and he's going to be on the books for like 4 or 5 years. So I would like to go either younger or somebody that's willing to take a shorter contract. So I don't know what Frank Clark's motivations are. He would be awesome for the team. It would just have to be on our terms, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case for him.
Yeah, if it's a 1-year deal, I'm like at 12. Like I'm all about it. But if it's like, hey, we're gonna give you 3 years, nah, I'm good here on a 3-year deal with him. And I think a lot of people are out on Frank Clark from a locker room standpoint. They don't like Frank Clark the person, which is fine. I want somebody like that on the roster. I would love to have somebody like that on the roster. Not that, I mean, he had like his criminal stuff, so maybe not all the way.
Right.
But as far as a guy who's gritty in the locker room, maybe a little bit of an outcast, beats to his own drum a little bit, is willing to talk a little ish and just get nasty when a game's on the line. I think the 49ers could use somebody like that. So maybe not Frank Clark necessarily like that exact player, but somebody like a Frank Clark with the mentality of Frank Clark, I think is absolutely a guy that I would love to have in this locker room. And I said Marcus Peters a couple weeks ago. I'm like, hey, if you need depth, bring in a guy like Marcus Peters. And a lot of people said no to him as well for the same reasons. First of all, this locker room can absorb a bad guy. One bad guy is not going to flip this locker room on its head. It's just not. The locker room is built. The culture is there. It's not going to change because of one person. I just feel like every team needs a guy or two like that. And the Kansas City Chiefs have had quite a few guys like that, and they've been able to manage it just fine, winning multiple rings. So I would like to have a personality type like a Marcus Peters, like a Frank Clark on this roster.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. What about Leonard Floyd, who is just let go by the Rams or is going to be let go by the Rams? How do you feel about that one?
Too expensive for a position that isn't a huge need for the 49ers. I mean, I think that we do amazing at developing linebackers, and we already need to, find some replacements there. I think they'll get guys through the draft, as well as, guys that are already on the roster or been on the practice squad. I don't necessarily think that. I think our money is going to be better spent on other positions than outside linebacker.
Yeah, and I think that he's still more of like a pass rush type of guy, but I don't know. Leonard Floyd doesn't like Leonard. Like, I'm going to throw Floyd in with really all these guys. I'm going to say the same thing about all of them. If I can get him on a 1-year deal, I'm all about it. I saw somebody say Justin Houston. I agree. Like, for me, if I can build this team and get multiple edge rushers that are aging or on the wrong side of 30 and just trying to seek a 1-year deal to either as like a prove it deal or you're just trying to chase a ring, for me, those are the guys I'm going to get, because it allows the 49ers to remain flexible past this year, and you're taking a shot on multiple guys. And so if Houston, I think, fits that mold perfectly. I think Quinn fits that mold perfectly. I think Floyd or Clark potentially could fit that mold if they're willing to take a 1-year deal. But if they're not, I'm cool with either one. Bud Dupree's a little bit younger. He's had some measured success depending on the team and the stop. Bud Dupree, I mean, is he a guy that you would be willing to go after?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm with you. Like, I'm not willing to commit long term to any of these guys, right? Because also, these guys could take away from the development of Drake Jackson, right? So ultimately, to me, if they're not the solution, well, what are we putting a Band-Aid on, right? So to me, that's kind of like I'm looking for somebody that I think the 49ers need another three down player on the line, on the defensive line, right? So if I'm bringing these guys in, I'd want them to be 3 down players. Yeah, I mean, Bud Dupree, I would probably, I don't know. Like, is he willing to take a 1-year deal? I don't know if he would. So, yeah, like I said, all of these are dependent on the contract.
Yeah. This last one, I'm super into, and I do think that he would fit this mold perfectly where he's at in his career. Khalil Mack, if he gets cut, he's like really high on my list as a guy that I really want to talk to and see if I can get that 1-year deal out of him, because he is at that age, but he's a big name player that I believe in a right situation could have a resurgence for a year. I definitely think he could do it. So Khalil Mack, and this is a guy too. I just talked about it a few minutes ago when we were talking about going all in for players. This is a guy that Lynch did come out and say, hey, they were all in on. And when he got traded from the Raiders to the Bears, they felt like they offered more than what the Bears did, and they still were unable to get him. So I've got to imagine if he becomes a free agent and is out there seeking a 1-year deal, that the 49ers would still be interested in a guy like Khalil Mack. And I really hope they would be, because hell of a player, Khalil Mack.
I would give him a couple-year deal, to be honest, Jesse. Like, he's a guy who I think can be a 3-down player, can perform. And look, he obviously didn't have, I think, as big of an impact with the Chargers. Do you know his stats from last year?
I think he had 6.5 sacks. I don't know what his pressure rate was, but
yeah, I mean, he played alongside, another Bosa, Joey Bosa, but I think that's somebody that could definitely help guys in the locker room, be kind of like a guy that you could depend on performing for a couple years, right? So that's one guy that I would give maybe a 2-3-year deal, a 2-year deal with a 3rd year out for the team kind of thing. Because Bosa needs help, man. And if Bosa, if a guy like Khalil Mack is there, I think that he would be willing he might not be looking for this huge payday. He might be looking for just what team is he going to be able to play on and compete. And I think the 49ers would fit that bill.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think I would be kind of on board with you, where I'd probably be willing to give a 2+1 deal. Definitely. So yeah, that's fair. Mike says sign Khalil Mack. Not sure Pitt what that is. Sutton. And what do you think about Stidham? Okay, let's talk about Stidham.
I mean, Stidham looked good against the 49ers.
Pretty good. Yeah, he looked pretty good.
He's also somebody who I think. So here's the thing: is Stidham willing to be a 3rd stringer? He has been, I think, in New England. I think maybe he was not suited. I don't know if he was back up there, but I think that Stidham still thinks he got some juice. So I don't know if he's going to be willing to come to the 49ers, but I think he'd be great. I think he'd be somebody that could play the role for a couple games, and I don't think he has a big enough name to where he's going to be a problem if he gets benched. You know what I mean? So I would be for it. I just don't know if he would be for it.
Yeah. And Cameron Sutton, I mean, it depends on what he wants. Like, how big of a deal is he seeking? I don't know. That's the one that I'm not sure about. I'm just not willing to overpay for like other players, especially because they did that in the market last year. But Sutton's a hell of a player. I mean, I do like the player, but if he's seeking like top corner money, I'm probably out on Sutton. But he's definitely a good player. Okay, so that's what you were saying. Now it makes sense. Pittsburgh's Cameron Sutton. Okay, I was thinking like Pitt. Like, is this another free agent that I'm missing? Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, instead I'm all for as well. I mean, if it's a 3rd string type situation, and definitely we just talked about Khalil Mack, so we agree there. But I think Sutton's going to command a lot of money this offseason. So we'll see about that. Let me say this before we get out of here. Again, link is in the description. Make sure you subscribe to Sunil's channel. And if you just type in Last Second Sports 2 and you want all NFL content, we're getting close to 500 subs on the second channel there, pushing out some really good numbers on a couple of the videos that have dropped over there. So go check that out as well. And then tomorrow night, we're doing the call-in show. So make sure you tune in after 49ers After Dark with Grant Cohen over on his channel. We're doing the call-in show here, and there's plenty to talk about. So make sure that you get your takes ready. We got a good show coming for you. Until then, peace.